South Korea's benchmark KOSPI rose above 6,000 on Wednesday in a semiconductor-led rally, at just 1 month after breaking the 5,000 threshold. Presiding over a national tourism strategy meeting, President Lee Jae-myung once again emphasized that the prosperity of the cultural industries driven by K-culture should translate into increased tourism for Korea. In the U.S., President Donald Trump delivered his State of the Union address, spending much of it highlighting his economic achievements and promoting his tariff policies. South Korea's benchmark KOSPI index soared past the 6,000 mark today, at just 1 month after breaking through 5,000. Our correspondent Park Jun-won has our top story tonight.
The KOSPI made history on Wednesday by surging past 6,100 during the day and closing at a record high above 6,000, capping off a remarkable rally that has captivated investors worldwide. The benchmark index climbed to close at 6,083, driven by robust gains in key sectors amid global optimism in the technology and automotive industries. Leading the charge were heavyweight stocks like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, which built on Tuesday's milestones, where Samsung hit 200,000 Korean won and SK Hynix reached 1 million won. The rises were supported by strong demand for semiconductors, fueled by advancements in artificial intelligence and partnerships in the tech space. Adding momentum were automotive giants Hyundai Motor and Kia, which both jumped sharply on expectations of advancements in robotics and autonomous driving. The two companies are shifting beyond car makers to become physical AI companies. As a result, the two surged by 9.16% and 12.7% respectively.
Hyundai Motor's identity changes entirely depending on whether it is viewed as a legacy automaker or a core player in physical AI. Through its recent partnership with NVIDIA, the company has gained confidence that its technological capabilities could advance to a level approaching that of Tesla.
KOSPI's 6,000 comes just over a month after it first crossed 5,000 on January 22nd, marking the fastest 1,000-point gain in its history. The index has soared more than 44% year-to-date, outpacing all major global markets and claiming the world's top return rate. Amid the significant stock rally, concerns do linger about sustainability. The rally's heavy reliance on just a few megacaps like Samsung and SK Hynix raises concerns. But an expert claims that it is the mega-cap companies that have the money and technology to dominate the market, which is universal in many countries.
When it comes to AI technology, companies without sufficient capital simply cannot get close. Firms that rank within the top 10 by market capitalization are, in a sense, our national champions. For now, the priority is survival. Discussions about sharing the gains can come after they secure their position.
While some domestic and international securities firms have raised year-end targets to as high as over 8,000, short-term volatility triggered by concerns over a tech bubble or external disruptions beyond the Korean market could still challenge the KOSPI's ongoing rally. Park Jun-won, Arirang News.
A key strategy meeting was held today to discuss ways to expand tourism and boost the economy. President Lee Jae-myung called for the need to leverage the popularity of K-culture to lead a boom in tourism, where people from around the world can feel Korea in person. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jang-min reports.
Nurturing tourism as a key pillar of economic growth. This as President Lee Jae-myung took matters into his own hands on Wednesday by presiding over a national tourism strategy meeting, the first to be held at the top level in about 7 years.
K-컬처가 촉발한 문화산업의 발전은 결국 대한민국 관광으로 귀결돼야 합니다. 전 세계인들이 직접 대한민국 땅을 밟고 대한민국을 체험할 수 있어야 합니다.
The number of inbound tourists hit nearly 19 million last year, and the government aims to attract 30 million foreign tourists by 2029. On top of that, the president called for the need to balance out resources and create region-specific travel programs to enhance the quality of tourism.
지금처럼 외국인 관광객의 80%가 서울에 집중되는 현실에 만족하면 관광산업의 성장이 한계에 봉착할 수밖에 없습니다. 관광산업 성장의 기회와 과실을 전국 골목 상권 그리고 지역의 소상공인들이 함께 누릴 수 있어야
Ideas for exchange to help boost tourism outside the capital.
For example, Korea can bind together traditional sites in Andong, Pusoksa Temple in Yeongju and petroglyphs in Ulsan as a connected route and form a cluster for tourism.
Preparations are underway for a Visit Korea Year campaign from 2027 to 2029.
With the help of private firms and related ministries, we will ensure no foreign visitor experiences any inconvenience when paying or using public transport, no matter where they go.
South Korea is also looking to ease visa rules, expand its automated immigration clearance service, and increase international flights to airports located far from the capital area. To root out tourists being ripped off and chronic problems hampering tourism, the government plans to mandate mom-and-pop stores and small lodging houses put up and update price information. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The National Assembly on Wednesday, after approving a motion to end an opposition-led filibuster, passed a revision to the Commercial Act, which will prevent companies from freely stockpiling treasury shares. The People Power Party opposed the amendment and staged an unlimited debate during Tuesday's plenary session. But the ruling Democratic Party used its parliamentary majority to bring the filibuster to a close. Now, following the vote, lawmakers tabled amendments to the Criminal Act that introduce a new crime of legal distortion, bringing the number of bills left on the agenda to 7. With the PPP pledging to launch a filibuster against every single one of them, the Assembly is headed for its longest plenary session yet. U.S. President Donald Trump delivered the first State of the Union address of his second term at the United States Capitol, laying out his administration's priorities on tariffs and immigration. Our Cho Young-un reports.
Kicking off just after 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, Trump opened his speech with a triumphant assessment of his first year back in the White House, declaring, "This is the golden age of America."
Today, our border is secure. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising fast. The roaring economy is roaring like never before, and our enemies are scared.
Touting his economic record, Trump credited this to his controversial global tariffs, which were struck down by the Supreme Court less than a week earlier. Pointing to stock market gains and new job creation, Trump said his decision to focus on imposing tariffs, despite warnings from many economists, has worked well for the economy.
As thousands of new businesses are forming in factories, plants, and laboratories are being built, we have added 70,000 new construction jobs in just a very short period of time. It's getting bigger and bigger and stronger.
After the Supreme Court delivered a major setback to his agenda by striking down his sweeping tariff, Trump described the ruling as unfortunate. He maintained that alternative legal mechanisms remained available to impose similar tariffs, reiterating his belief that these could eventually replace income tax.
But the good news is that almost all countries and corporations want to keep the deal that they already made.
The president went on to highlight his immigration crackdown and also praised efforts to stop the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. and lower the murder rate. He delivered extended remarks recognizing victims of violent crimes committed by people who were in the U.S. illegally, with several family members in attendance.
We now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far.
Coming ahead of the country's November midterm elections, Trump also added a surprise element to the evening, awarding medal to service members and inviting the U.S. men's hockey team to the chamber following their Olympic win. Cho Young-un, Arirang News.
In the meantime, Trump has also warned Iran that it will never be allowed to obtain nuclear weapons, while stressing diplomacy remains his preferred option. Jung Hae-rim reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump issued a stark warning to Iran during his State of the Union address on Tuesday, the first address of his second term.
My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
His remarks come amid a major U.S. military buildup in the region. The military has deployed over 150 aircraft across Europe and the Middle East, following recent nuclear talks with Iran ending without a breakthrough on February 17th. According to flight tracking data and satellite imagery reviewed by the Washington Post on Tuesday, this marks one of the largest U.S. force buildups in the region in more than 2 decades. The deployment includes fighter jets such as F-35s and F-22s, along with refueling tankers, surveillance aircraft, and cargo planes. Tehran is now showcasing its own military power. On Tuesday, Iranian state TV released a video of the Revolutionary Guard conducting coastal drills. The footage shows forces launching missiles, flying drones, and firing at targets, though the exact time and location of the exercises were not disclosed. Despite the tensions, the United States and Iran are set to resume nuclear talks in Geneva on Thursday. Iran's foreign minister said Tuesday that a deal to avoid military confrontation is, quote, within reach, but warned Tehran would respond firmly to any attack. The talks come at a critical moment as both sides seek diplomacy but weigh national interest as a priority. Meanwhile, oil prices rose amid concerns over the standoff as markets weighed the risk of conflict alongside the possibility of renewed negotiations. 정혜림, 아리랑 뉴스.
The Trump administration is moving quickly to reconfigure its tariff regime after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down its reciprocal tariffs. A new 10% global tariff has now taken effect, with the possibility of a hike to 15%. For more on what this means for Korea's economy and security talks with Washington, we turn to our correspondent, Oh Soo-young. Hello, Soo-young.
Hi, Dami.
So, Soo-young, it seems the biggest risk right now is the Section 301 investigations, right?
That's right. So the US's 1974 Trade Act, Section 301, now that allows the US to impose these tariffs if it deems that after an investigation into what it deems are unfair or discriminatory practices against US firms. And the Office of the Trade Representative has already indeed indicated that it's going to start launching these kind of probes, particularly into Asian countries with trade surpluses with the United States. Last year, the US recorded a trade deficit of $56.4 billion with South Korea. Now, that places us really at 11th in trade deficit size among major US trading partners. The USTR has also previously pointed to Korea's digital regulations as possible non-tariff barriers, and these Washington fears might affect its biggest firms like Google and Meta. That's according to Henry Haggard, a former State Department official who is now a senior advisor for West Exec Advisors.
I think there's real concern that South Korea sees it might go towards the more heavily regulated tech space that the EU has favored and has leaned forward with, back from GDPR and other regulatory laws and that they put in the past, their AI Act. So there's two things that the U.S. companies find problematic about that. First and foremost, they want South Korea to align with the United States. And that's not just for U.S. market access and market share, but it's also for cooperation with South Korean companies going forward in AI and quantum, the next generation tech space.
And Soo-young, I'd like to point out a key flashpoint could be the Coupang controversy, right?
That's right, Tammy. So amid a probe by Korean authorities into the massive data leakage that happened last year by the US e-commerce giant Coupang, the US House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Coupang Korea's acting head Harold Rogers, with US lawmakers accusing Korean authorities of what they called targeted attacks. So Korean officials have been trying to explain to the US side that the issue really derives from a data leakage case and really shouldn't be part of intergovernmental talks. However, the mood in Washington right now is likely to persist.
the reality is that is how actions in Korea are being perceived. And the way I know that is because normally the U.S. Congress doesn't take these kind of actions. Normally the vice president does not mention specific treatment of specific U.S. companies to a prime minister like he did a few weeks ago.
Then, Soo-young, isn't also there a concern about specific industries being hit with national security tariffs?
Yes, I think that really adds another layer of risk, Tammy. The Washington Post the Wall Street Journal actually reported that the Commerce Department is currently reviewing 6 particular sectors under Section 232. Now, this would allow the US to impose tariffs if imports are deemed to threaten their national security. Now, these sectors include large capacity batteries, cast iron fittings, plastic piping, industrial chemicals, power grids, and telecommunications equipment. Now, that's worrying for our battery manufacturers involved in large-scale energy storage systems, as well as exporters of power equipment such as transformers. Now, Section 232 investigations, they take quite some time, typically up to months, sometimes up to a year. But once those tariffs are imposed, then the president can adjust the rate without opening an investigation.
Well, Soo-young, to resolve these issues, a dialogue is needed, but Washington's priorities seem to lie elsewhere. Now, this affects security discussions, doesn't it?
That's right. So you've got trade discussions on one hand, but obviously the security dialogue that should be ensuing around now or as early as late as early March, apparently, but those kind of conversations appear to have been delayed, and some security officials in Seoul have, of course, posed some concern that these security concerns are being affected by these trade issues. Last November's Korea-US joint fact sheet tied together both trade and security tracks, a $350 billion investment pledge into the United States, of course, as well as follow-up consultations on security issues, including nuclear-powered submarines, broader nuclear cooperation, including uranium enrichment and spent fuel reprocessing. Now, such security discussions were expected to begin early this year, as mentioned, with a US delegation to visit Seoul by early next month. But after President Donald Trump warned that he could raise reciprocal tariffs on Korean exports from 15% to 25%, Seoul officials have expressed concern that these trade and investment issues might be affecting these security discussions.
And that will take a lot of interagency work, a lot of careful negotiation. And I'm just, this is one of the things we saw when we looked at last summer and last spring. You looked at how many trade deals, how ambitious this administration was about getting new agreements and changing trade relationships and encouraging investment. Very ambitious, had a lot of wins, but now the implementation is both challenging just in and of itself, but also challenging because of the current environment in Washington.
And as of Wednesday, there's been no confirmation from Washington on who the delegation members will be, when they're coming. So in Seoul, officials in their efforts to secure such a meeting, a foreign ministry official said Tuesday that Seoul is even considering visiting Washington as an option should the talks be further delayed. So all these discussions are really up in the air at the moment, Tammy, and the Korean government is really doing all it can not to lose momentum.
We'll have to keep watching how this develops. So, Soo-young, thanks for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.
The numbers are in for the number of newborns in December 2025, making 2025 the year with the steepest on-year increase since 2010. Yoon-jin has the details.
South Korea's birth rate grew at the fastest pace in 15 years in 2025, with the number of babies born tallied at 254,500. That's according to a government report released on Wednesday, which said the figure rose 6.8% from 2024, marking a birth rate increase for the second consecutive year. The country's total fertility rate has also risen to 0.8 for the first time in 4 years. The Ministry of Data and Statistics attributes the rebound to an increase in marriages and the continued rise in the number of women in their early 30s, a figure that has been increasing since 2021. It noted that the number of marriages rose for 21 straight months between April 2024 and December 2025 as couples who had delayed their marriages due to the pandemic got married. The ministry also highlighted that there's been a notable change in social perception towards having children. The number of couples planning to have children after marriage rose by 3.1 percentage points in 2024 in the ministry's latest biannual survey, while there was also an increase in the proportion of people willing to give birth outside of marriage, which increased by 2.5 percentage points. With such data, the government projected the total fertility rate of the country to stay above the 0.8 level this year and to further rise to 1 by 2030. However, this still keeps South Korea's birth rate the lowest among OECD countries. Meanwhile, the number of deaths also went up 1.3% on year in 2025, which means the country saw a natural population decline of 110,000. 이은진, Arirang News.
Coupang announced on Wednesday that around 200,000 Taiwanese accounts were included among the massive data breach of some 3.3 million accounts last year. Now, according to the U.S. enlisted e-commerce giant, the cybersecurity firms Mandiant and Palo Alto found this out during their comprehensive forensic investigation. The firm added that the data access from these accounts was limited to basic content and order information, and that the perpetrator reportedly retained information from only one of those accounts. Now, Taiwan's Digital Affairs Ministry was reportedly notified about the matter earlier this week and said it plans to conduct an administrative inspection shortly. In a joint briefing earlier this afternoon, South Korea and the U.S. announced they will carry out their annual joint military drill Freedom Shield next month. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
South Korea and the United States will stage their annual joint springtime military exercise, Freedom Shield, from March 9th to 19th. In terms of field training that is usually conducted in a concentrated fashion during this period, the allies said they were still consulting on how the drills will take place this time, but that they will be executed in a balanced fashion. This is reportedly due to South Korea's request to adjust the drills, seemingly to reduce any reaction by North Korea. They added that the drills serve as a chance to support ongoing preparations for a conditions-based wartime operational transition.
During the exercise, our militaries will carry out a joint assessment to test if the future CFC can fully operate as part of transferring wartime control within the current administration.
The press release for the exercise did not specifically say it would involve scenarios featuring direct North Korean threats. Rather, it said the drills will focus on deterring the regime's nuclear threats.
The exercise will focus on deterring DPRK's WMDs, which include nuclear weapons. The Mutual Defense Treaty does not name an adversary. We're here to ensure that both Iraq and U.S. can defend the Republic of Korea against any adversary.
Several UN Command member states are to contribute to the exercise, and the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission will observe the drills to monitor compliance with the armistice agreement. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
AI is taking flight at South Korea's largest drone exhibition down in Busan City. Global firms are showcasing the latest unmanned technologies across key industries. Our business correspondent Kim Jun-hong was there.
The future of the skies is no longer science fiction, but an AI-driven reality reshaping both battlefields and industries. Asia's largest drone exhibition, DSK 2026, is underway in Busan, drawing participants from more than 20 countries. Defense remains the industry's most strategic domain, with the Ministry of National Defense unveiling AI-driven combat systems and autonomous operations. Developed by the ROK Army, this drone integrates AI algorithms trained on simulated combat scenarios to assess targets and simplify conventional command procedures.
The AI identifies the most suitable military unit and weapons for the target, and the information is sent directly, allowing for a much faster response.
Industry players are also integrating AI into new drone capabilities. This surveillance drone, supplied to the Marine Corps, can detect floating objects in inaccessible areas, suggesting uses beyond the battlefield.
For example, AI now powers agricultural machinery and even seed planting drones, making everyday tasks more efficient. Today, AI is at the center, with drones serving simply as the platform for its expanding applications.
Beyond the exhibition floor, global visitors are closely watching Korea's growing drone capabilities. What stands out to many is the industry's ability to deliver fully integrated solutions.
The Korean companies are very, very competitive. What I admire is the capability to build the final product and sell the final product with all the support, software and hardware. That's very inspiring.
Drones are expanding their role across multiple next-generation industries, and with AI now embedded in these systems, a new chapter is beginning. Kim Jun-ong, Arirang News, Busan.
Those of us in the capital area had a pleasant spring weather this afternoon under blue skies with clean air. Hope you had a chance to soak up the sunshine. Temperatures were pushed more than a month ahead of a schedule, and tomorrow looks to be a repeat of today with more clouds moving in. The morning starts off on a chilly note at 2 degrees in the capital, but -4 degrees Celsius in Chuncheon. But highs will jump more than 10 degrees by the afternoon. And Seoul and Chuncheon both will be getting up to 15 degrees Celsius, Daegu getting up to 16 degrees. And unlike the central regions, southern provinces will continue to have cloudy skies, and air quality will remain normal to good nationwide. Spring-like warmth continues through the long weekend, while Jeju Island will see more wet weather for the time being. With that in mind, here's a look at the international weather conditions. That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.